This is the Quantum Biology Podcast, where we break down the practical health applications of this emerging science, starting with healthy light habits and going wherever the quantum superhighway takes us. In this episode, we talk to health influencer and wellness practitioner Sarah Kleiner about her experience working through various approaches to health, from fitness to diets, that ultimately led her to the field of quantum biology, first as a patient and now as a certified practitioner. During this interview, Sarah spoke publicly for the first time about her miracle pregnancy, and we're delighted to let you know she has since delivered a healthy baby boy. Enjoy this insightful journey with Sarah through the health and wellness maze, as she learns by trial and error what really works and why. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Sarah, thank you so much for being here. I don't know if you've been watching. I did a brief intro before we came into the breakout sessions. And, as I said in the intro, we've had like a lot of like heavy dose detailed information dropped on us today. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit. And I think Sarah's story over the past year is just so compelling. And it's extra compelling because, she tracks a lot of it on her Instagram account. She's an influencer on there and has quite a large following. And so, Sarah, I think you're just such a fantastic role model and mentor, both for health influencers and for people who are just looking to feel better, because you're willing to question everything as you go along and learn new things and make changes and let people know how that's going. So I think that's like the absolute best way to be. And that's why I think that's what health influencers should do. And when they do it that way, they bring so much to the world, and you're one of those people. So thank you. And love for you to share your story.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I'm just so honored to be a part of this summit. There's just so many amazing people that I look up to, that I have been learning from over the last year. And so it's just amazing to be included in this. But a lot of people know, I started my account about 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago now. I was, I guess, kind of an accidental influencer. I just started sharing my journey of health transformation, going from, a plant heavy, little bit of meat diet and suffering with a lot of health issues like eczema, depression, IBS, bloating, indigestion. I just had a ton of health issues and did a carnivore diet. And a lot of that stuff was, it was greatly helped. And so, just starting this that whole way of eating, I put it out on Instagram. People started following me, and I was like, oh, this is kind of this is crazy. And I've just been sharing a lot about my life over the last 3 years on Instagram, almost 4 years, and YouTube as well. I have a YouTube channel. And this last year, at the end of 2020, we decided, what, we really want to have another baby. We have my daughter, Alexis, she'll be 15 in December. So she's 14 now. But we had always wanted a second child. And it was just one of those things that, when you have a child with special needs, she has pretty severe autism that requires a lot of our energy. You say, oh, well, we'll wait till it gets a little easier. And it was at that point that I had turned 41 in 2020. And I was like, okay, we gotta do this. And so I thought this is going to be easy. I have been eating an amazing diet. I'm connected to all these people. And I thought it'd be real easy to get pregnant. And I actually did get pregnant pretty quickly. But unfortunately, I have never talked about this in a public forum. So hopefully I can do this without getting too emotional. But I lost that first one. And it was a shock to me at 7 weeks when I went to that appointment and there was no heartbeat. It was just devastating. And, the doctors are like, you're fine. This happens all the time. Pregnancy loss is very normal. It's like 1 out of every 4 people. So just keep going, try again. You're going to be fine. The next one will be fine. And so I kind of had started at that point being like, well, am I really like as healthy as I thought I was, you know? And so kept trying, and we got pregnant on my birthday last year. Again, was the second one. And I didn't really have a great feeling about it. The whole time I was just kind of like, scared. I was terrified. And that happened again, no heartbeat again at 7 weeks. And I was utterly crushed. And at that point, I started getting desperate, and I started being like, well, obviously there's something, that my diet and everything about me, I'm not as healthy as I thought I was. But doctors, well, this is just normal for someone in their 40s trying to get pregnant. This is normal. But the more I looked into it, the more I saw that there was a major fertility crisis happening for women in their 30s and women in their 20s, because you feel so alone. And like I did when I started carnivore, I felt really alone. I started following a lot of accounts and just doing a lot of research about pregnancy loss and healthy pregnancy, and seeing like, wow, this is a massive, massive problem. And my doctors, my conventional doctors, were saying, well, the only thing, what we're going to recommend for you at this point is IVF, because you can get pregnant, but we need to be testing the embryos before we put them in you to make sure that they're normal. Unbeknownst to me, the second pregnancy that I had lost, that embryo was normal, was totally normal. It was a little girl. But I didn't know that until after I had already signed the contracts and agreed to start the IVF process. And then I started seeking out all these different experts. My YouTube channel, my Instagram, all of that was last year filled with a lot of doctors, and I questioned every single one of them about this situation, because they were all like, carnivore is the healthiest diet. This, all you have to do is diet. And I started really questioning that. And it was because of my questioning that I ran into my quantum health people. I was introduced to Dr. Jack Cruz, who I interviewed on my channel, who that connected me with Dr. Corey Gasvini. That also connected me with Meredith, who's sitting here. That connected me with all of these amazing people that are presenting. And, while I was going through the IVF process, I started talking to them, and I started learning about light, and I started learning about, all the things I was doing that had nothing to do with food, that was interfering with my fertility, that was interfering with my reproductive health. And I just started having like all these light bulb moments and being like, oh my gosh, I've got to start seeing sunrise. I've got to, I changed my entire lifestyle last year, because I wanted the baby so bad. And I knew, I was like, I know that the baby's going to come, but there's something I'm missing. And I'm going through this for a reason. As painful as it was, I knew that this baby was trying to get me to wake up and to learn. I knew that all along. I was like, well, and I knew it was a he, by the way. I've known for years I was going to have a little boy. I've known since 2016 I was going to have a little boy. I call him the quantum baby, because he came to me years ago and said I could bring him here and he was going to be healthy. And so I just was fighting for this baby. And the IVF ended up not working. $45,000 down the drain. That was one of the most devastated times for me in my life. Was when, and I had just started the quantum health coach certification. I think when I was talking to Meredith the first time to get into the quantum health certification, I was like, I'm going through my second round of IVF. I kind of told her what had been going on and why I was interested in quantum health. And so and I told all my quantum friends like what was going on, because I wanted to hear from them like what I needed to do. I was like, I've already got the diet piece down. I feel good about that, but what else can I do? And I did pay other doctors and paid tons of money for tons of supplements, and it didn't work. Paid for all this expensive genetic testing and supplements, did not work. So it was October that Dr. Corey Gasvini, who's a friend of mine, he didn't charge me a penny. And he's like, look, you got to keep mitigating your EMF environment. You got to keep doing all the circadian habits, which I was very doing, but I want you to start cold plunging. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're crazy. All right, I will do it because I know that this baby wants to come. And if this is what I have to do. And so, October, November, December, cold plunging, red light therapy. I did deuterium depleted water. I quit almost all the supplements. I quit taking advice from a lot of these doctors that told me I needed to come back and do more IVF. I was like, first of all, that process really sucks. It's terrible. Highly do not recommend. And in January, I was like, you know what? I've given all this quantum stuff a good go. Let's just try this. And you know, got a positive pregnancy test the end of January, and I just hit the 24-week mark today. And it is a little boy, and he is kicking around in there, and I'm just like so full of joy. And I just feel like all this crazy stuff I went through, and I was an influencer online going through probably one of the most painful years of my entire life. And I kept questioning, like, why am I having to go through all this pain and devastation and sadness? And all these other influencers and people are getting pregnant around me and are like, oh, I just did the diet and got pregnant. And I'm like, well, that didn't happen for me. That I saw this superstar doctor and that one, and that didn't happen for me. And so my big lesson and my big passion now is teaching people about quantum health and how to understand these things. And I really do want to, once I get more brave, sharing this story, sharing these things in a public forum is hard for me because I am a public figure, and a lot of this stuff is still really raw, and I'm still processing a lot of it, but I want to help other people in understanding what a huge crisis people are going through with fertility. Like I said, not just people my age, but people in their 30s and people in their 20s, and how interconnected our fertility is to our health. And I just see so many other people that are struggling with health issues, even while following a diet perfectly, and a lot of people just kind of push them under the rug. That's kind of what a lot of those superstar doctors I interviewed on my channel. It's like, you need to carnivore harder. You need to fast harder. You need to do these things harder. And I was like, but I am, and it's not working. So, there's got to be something more. And unlocking, my journey to quantum health was the big aha moment that just, I can't ever go back to not talking about it. I can't ever go back to my old lifestyle. I can't ever go back to those things because now I see how profoundly I'm affected by light. Something as simple as light that I kind of just would brush off and be like, that's stupid. Just go outside more. I'm like, that's too easy, right? Like, why would I do that? That's way too easy. But I really want people to understand that health doesn't have to be this huge complicated thing where you have to take a ton of supplements and you have to pay doctors for expensive testing. I paid for all that stuff. I paid for, I probably spent $100,000 last year. Not proud of that. Not proud of that at all. And the things that worked for me, the things that got me the healthiest I had ever been, were free, and unless you count spending money on ice, and a cheap $60 tub from Amazon. I did use red light therapy, and I did pay money for the deuterium depleted water. But if you compare the things that I did to the cost of an IVF cycle, or it's minuscule. And then not to mention the emotional toll that those things take on you. Going through IVF, you have to inject yourself every night and every morning with medications that cost thousands of dollars. You have to go to the doctor every other day for an ultrasound that's very invasive, and blood work. My veins were both shot out on both arms by the end of the 2 months. And then there's the emotional side of it, of like, is this going to work? And, all the doctor's appointments, and just, there's a better way, and so many women are struggling and families are struggling. And there's a better way. And so again, that's why it's been crazy to have this public profile and all these people following me, and no one has had any freaking idea of the heartache and the hard stuff I've been through over the last year. But now it's like, I've got my rainbow baby. I've got my story of hope and of healing. And the cool thing that happened for me that I didn't mean to happen was that I lost 30 pounds in the process of trying to get pregnant. I wasn't trying to. That's just a side effect of the quantum healing. And I had been trying to fast and trying to cut carbs more and trying to diet and trying to exercise more and all that stuff for years. And my weight would move a little bit, but not very much. And then just implementing the quantum health stuff, sunrise, getting outside during the day, walking around barefoot, cold therapy, red light therapy, deuterium depleted water, those things, the weight came off, and I didn't have to starve myself. I didn't have to calorie count. I didn't have to do any of that stuff. So yeah, that's really, that's my story of quantum healing. And, people, I guess, I could take some questions if people have them, or, what do you think, Meredith?
Yeah, sure. If anyone has a question for Sarah, please put it in the chat. And Sarah, thank you so much for sharing that. I know it can be, when you have a lot of, public eyes on you, you have to keep your inner stuff really safe sometimes. So I'm really grateful you feel like you're in a place where you can share it with our little summit crowd here.
Yeah, this is my test to try to see if I'm ready to share it on a bigger stage. But this is, I feel like it's an appropriate place to really to share, for sure.
Good. Yeah. And I was really struck by, so we have a question about your diet. We'll get to that. I just wanted to talk about one thing quickly. Like when you said, how doctors who were very focused on a specific, plan of some sort, whether it was food or supplements or genetic testing or whatever. I think often what happens with patients, and especially with women, is like, we're like, okay, well, I'm not getting better. And it's like, okay, well, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
And I was talking at the beginning of how when evidence comes up that doesn't fit in our paradigm, it gets called an anomaly, and we just like push it to the side. So I feel like we're like anomalies to these doctors, and they inadvertently sort of undermine us by making assumptions that it's our lack of compliance that's the problem.
Totally. 100%. You just need to do this diet harder. You need to get on a better schedule with the supplements, in your heart, like I knew in my heart, I knew in my gut, like that these things are not getting me where I need to go. This is not helping, but I didn't know what else to do,
Yeah.
And everyone that I came across in this community, no one charged me anything. People were just like, no, let's, try this, let's do this, and kind and listen to me, and were like my therapist and my friends, and didn't charge me a penny for what actually ended up working. Yeah. So I guess.
So Kelly would like to know about, what you do, where you've landed in terms of what you eat. And it's at Carnivore Yogi is
carnivore.yogi. Yeah.
Carnivore. Oh, is it dot? Okay. Carnivore.
Yeah. There's a dot in the middle. Because someone took that one years ago, but they've never posted. So like preconception, I was very focused on just loading my body with as much nutrient dense food as possible. So red meat, lots of wild seafood. That's the big thing that I really changed, is being very consistent with the salmon roe. I eat that probably 5 days, 6 days a week, probably 5 days. But I started doing that preconception. I switched to more of a seasonal approach to my eating over the last year, I would say. So during the winter, I was doing mostly ketosis. I mean, I wasn't doing any carb refeeds at all during the winter. I really wasn't eating a lot of carbohydrates. I stayed to a pretty high fat ketogenic diet. And then I, got pregnant in January. So at that time, I wasn't eating a bunch of carbohydrates. It was mostly red meat, lots of eggs. I have access to raw dairy. I didn't really start drinking raw milk until after I got pregnant because I just started craving it a lot more. Um, but pre-pregnancy really was still a lot of a ketogenic diet. Now, at the end of the summer last year, and in the summer, I was experimenting with 1 day a week where I would have some carbohydrates to see if I had that metabolic flexibility. I wanted to see if I could go from ketosis to burning glucose to back to ketosis, and my body got really good at that. I did do fasting. I was advised to fast. And so I did do some fasting over the summer, like a 24-hour fast once a week. I did that. And then I did a 48-hour fast one in September, one in October. And then I was advised by my quantum friends to stop fasting. And that actually ended up playing out in my favor. So I had to switch my eating to more of a circadian type of eating. So always eating breakfast every morning. I was always out for sunrise every single morning. And so eating breakfast within 30 minutes to an hour of sunrise. I cut off all caffeine. I stopped caffeine at the beginning of 2021 in my first pregnancy. Actually, it's second pregnancy, but who's counting? But that's when I actually quit caffeine, was that first time I had found out I was pregnant. I was like, oh crap. And so I never went back to the caffeine. And I think that helped quite a bit. So and now that I'm pregnant, I'm eating a lot of meat, a lot of raw dairy, milk, cheese, eggs, raw butter, just a very Weston A price. I don't like to call it keto carnivore. You could call it animal based if you wanted to, or kind of more carnivore ish. But I really stick to more of like the Weston A price principles when it comes to eating at this point. So seasonal eating. Oh, I think you're muted, Meredith.
I did mute myself. Sorry. There's a question about deuterium depleted water. So before you jump to answer that, I did also just want to say what you said in that answer is that I think in a non-quantum approach to health, we tend to just like sort of what I was saying earlier, right? It's like, oh, well, you're not doing the diet hard enough. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, the exercise isn't getting the results you want. You're not doing it hard enough. It's you're not taking enough supplements. You're not taking the right. Like there's always we're always just trying to make everything more intense. Mm-hmm. And what I have found about, and what you just described about like the quantum approach, is that it's actually like you really dial back off the intensity.
Yeah.
It's much more holistic, and you don't have to feel like you're going so hard and like, like everyone I know who's switch to a quantum lifestyle exercises less than they did before and gets better results.
Yeah. I mean, the 30 pounds that I lost, I was not doing as much exercise as I was all the years I had been doing it to try to lose the weight. I backed off. I let my body rest more. What I did is improve my redox function. I'm sure anyone in the summit this weekend is going to hear the word redox a ton. But when you improve your redox function, you don't have to kill yourself, with diet and exercise, because your body is more of a self-healing organism. It's more in tune with nature. So you're not fighting an uphill battle all the time, which is the most beautiful thing about this lifestyle. I don't feel like I'm torturing myself, or I'm restricting myself. I feel very much at peace with my lifestyle. I really do. Yeah, but the deuterium depleted water. So I did this from, I think, September to December, and there's a lot of information about deuterium. I have done a podcast with some guys from Lightwater. I'm trying to interview Laszlo Boros right now. He's one of the world's leading researchers on deuterium. But essentially, our bodies, deuterium's not a bad thing. Our bodies can handle it, but in a very non-scientific way of explaining it, it does slow down our mitochondrial function. And we need deuterium to grow. So when I knew I was going to try for the baby again, January, I quit the deuterium depleted water in December, because your body needs deuterium to build a baby. You need it to grow. And so I stopped doing the depletion at that time. But it's basically getting deuterium depleted water. And that's the only thing I drank mixed with regular water. You deplete your water to about 100 parts per million of deuterium depleted water. And then that's all I drank. I didn't drink coffee, obviously. I did make bone broth. I made deuterium depleted bone broth, very expensive bone broth, by the way. But that's all the liquid that came in my body. If I was going to make a soup or a broth, of deuterium depleted water was in it. And essentially this just helps speed up your mitochondrial function. Some people say being on a ketogenic diet is enough to be deuterium depleted. It's not, because you still have to drink water. I know people who've been doing keto for years, and they've actually tested their deuterium levels, and they're like at a 149. Most people are at a 150 to 155. I did not test mine beforehand. I have no idea what I was, but about 3 weeks into the depletion, I woke up and it was like, I would like to walk 5 miles this morning. Like, I just had like amazing energy, metabolism sped up. I felt great. I had to be, Corey and Carrie had to convince me to come off the water. They're like, look, you don't want to do deuterium depleted water 365. You can't, that's not how it's intended. It's really intended more for cancer, for acute conditions, it's not something that you just want to be drinking it all the time. So if anyone does want to do it, it's short amounts of time. It's not something you do for the rest of your life. It's to help kind of clean things up. After the baby's born and I'm finished breastfeeding, I will probably do another little round of 90 days or so. But while I'm pregnant and breastfeeding, that's not going to be a good idea, because the baby needs deuterium. But yeah, that I was told by another doctor that was a waste of time. All I needed to do was be keto, and that was enough to be deuterium. That's not true, because you still drink water, and the food that you eat still has deuterium in it. So that's a very non-scientific, simple explanation. I have a course that I'm running right now, and we have a whole section on the science of deuterium, how to deplete, how to do it safely. So all my courses are linked in my Instagram bio if you guys are interested in any of that stuff.
Wonderful. Sarah, thank you so much for doing this and for sharing your story. I'm so excited and happy for you.
Thank you.
And your quantum baby. What a blessing. And everyone, please go to Sarah's Instagram page. Her classes are really good. Her classes are really great. If you're like looking to feel better, and you've been bouncing around trying to figure out who's going to give you some really good tips and easy to understand advice, Sarah's your woman. And Angela, thanks for being in here and being so helpful in the chat. So I'm going to pop back over to the main room. And Sarah, again, thank you. We really appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you.
This has been the Quantum Biology Collective podcast. To find a practitioner who practices from this point of view, visit our directory at quantumbiologycollective.org. If you are a practitioner, definitely take a look at the Applied Quantum Biology Certification, a 6-week study of the science of the new human health paradigm and its practical application with your patients and clients. We also love to feature graduates of the program on this very podcast. Until next time, the QBC.